What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is episode 183 of Omnic Lab. We are a podcast that focuses on the game of Overwatch, but specifically talk all about the strategies in the game. And this week, we are with you yet again and packing in so many strategies. We're talking about not just the typical game, but we're talking about the highest level of play from Overwatch League Season 3, Weekend 1. Like, opening week, we saw so much cool stuff. My name's Rob. Welcome back to the show. Andres Gomez drinking that warm Georgia water. What's up, dude? I bought as much time as I could for you there.
It's not that warm. It's actually pretty cold over here. It's like below freezing today. That being said, what does warm my heart is seeing all the new strategies in Overwatch League. Like you were saying, it's a brand new season, and man, it's kicked off with a bang. I'm super excited to talk about it. There's Genji's coming back. There's Dive. There's Divas. There's Reinhardt's. A lot to talk about. So yeah, let's get to it.
I am so incredibly excited for this show, but I have to tell you, I was also excited when I went to the supermarket today, and I saw for the first time in 4 years a Dr. Pepper sitting on the row of just sodas. I was like.
That's like Japan problems, not being able to see a Dr. Pepper.
They have
ever.
it here. It's just only in like the bigger cities, I guess.
Oh yeah, you're like in the outskirts, right?
Seasonal? I'm not quite sure if it's a seasonal item yet because I haven't gone through another season where it's not there other than like the entire year. But it was funny because I was like, I wasn't actually looking for it, or even I don't drink soda very often. I pretty much just drink water and coffee, and that's it. But like right next to that, they have their seasonal Fanta, which is like the orange grape soda, typical stuff in the States that you'll see. But they have a rotating one that happens every year. And so right now they have like orange and yogurt flavored Fanta.
Interesting.
And I was like this
orange
so
cream
weird.
soda?
I want to try it. What's that?
Is it like an orange cream soda? Because they do have those over here.
No, it's a white thing. They have this soda here called Calpis, Calpis. It's pronounced Kadupis in Japanese katakana form, but like you can get a carbonated one or a non-carbonated one, and it's essentially like a lemony yogurt type taste, like a sports drink taste.
Interesting.
It's really unique, but it's really popular here in Asia, I guess. So
I kind of want to try it.
Anyways.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, and then they also, now that it's Valentine's season, all the strawberry stuff's coming out. Apparently, strawberry stuff, daifuku, which is basically chocolate covered strawberries, is really popular around this time of year. So they have strawberry flavored Coke, orange flavored Pepsi, I guess, right now. And they had peach Coke a little while ago for New Year's, and that was weird. I did not like it.
Peach
but
Coke,
the strawberry one is even weirder. It tastes wrong.
That's when you know you're in a different culture. You can tell by their sodas. Once you start not recognizing them, you're like, okay, yeah, we're somewhere else.
Yeah, the best part is going to the vending machine and only like less than 10% of it is carbonated. That's like one of my favorite things about Japan is they have so many vending machines. They're so available, and most of it's tea and coffee, not anything else.
Awesome.
It's great. It's great. All right. Side notes aside, we don't really do a whole lot in the show. We're pretty tight, but I figured it would be a little fun cross-cultural exchange for some of you out there. So the first thing is just a couple announcements real quick. We got the game night for February is coming a bit faster. We're on the 28th this time around. So that is coming up in just a few days. Essentially, we've got this weekend and then that we're recording a next weekend and then following that. So we got 2 weeks and then we'll have our next game night. I hope to see you all there. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day weekend for some of you, and anniversaries is quite a popular time this month in particular, just because of that. But the other thing we're doing is our coaching stuff. We're still doing it. We're still scheduling stuff. We had some questions today that I'd like to address. And Andres, you can feel free to back up anything else. But if you're signing up for Patreon at the $250 level, right? You want to sign up and get coaching at the platinum level? Great. You can get one coaching session per month. So every month you do your sub, you got it. $250 per episode, you get coaching. This is like probably the third month in a row. And then the only reason why I'm mentioning this, that we've had a question where a player wants coaching twice a month or more. They're like, I don't see that offered anywhere. Is that available? And we say, yes, it is. If you can offer at the $5 point, basically double what the single coaching session is, we give it to you. So if you offer yourself sorry, you don't offer yourself. If you offer the $5 price point per creation, essentially 4 episodes a month, you can get a second coaching sessions if you want. It's
Yep.
not very often that happens, but we do
And
get this question a lot.
it's also available for all Diamond patrons. We do have a few Diamond
Yes.
patrons there. So if you are looking for a more personalized experience and have a few more coaching sessions a month, that's also a great tier to do it. We've been getting a little bit more demand for those, which is great. We love it. We love coaching you guys, and the more we get to know you guys, the better. It helps us shape the show, and also we learn a lot by coaching you guys as well. Plus, it's really fun for us getting to know some of the people that listen to the show. We've gotten some great suggestions coming from you guys. So overall, it's been working out really great for us. And as long as it's working out for you guys and you guys want more of it, yeah, we're willing to do more.
Right. Absolutely. So as we're kind of transitioning into the topic at hand here, we want to mention a couple things, which is what the map pool is actually dictates a lot of what strategies develop. This is something that we wanted to make sure that we punch through as a main key in developing strategies at the top level, at any level, and kind of trickling down the less kind of mechanics that you have to worry about, the less this really matters. And the better you get at the game, the more this matters. So it's kind of a fun thing to add to your kind of toolbox of learning as you kind of climb the ladder. And that is how you consider the value of certain things. And certain things would be stuff like mobility, long sight lines, shorter brawls, larger open areas, smaller, more confined areas, lots of flanking paths, high grounds, lots of high grounds, lots of low grounds, kind of choke points. Those are the things that you consider when you're running specific comps. And then on top of that, it's just the style of the game, right? If you're trying to hold a point and push off of it, control. You're trying to just capture the point in assault and in hybrid, or if you're just trying to push the cart. Those strategies can a lot of times look the same, but essentially operate differently practically. And so that's where we kind of get a lot of these things. Anders, did you want to add anything about that?
No, that's a great way to put it. Strategies are really relevant in the context of what map you're playing and what's the environment, right? What heroes can you get away with, and how can you abuse the terrain around you with a certain composition? And like you said, versus attack or defense is not the same as defending with maybe a bunker comp as it is defending with a dive comp, for example. Both of those you have to play stylistically very differently, but it can be done, right? And I'm excited about this season because we're seeing a lot of that. It reminds me a lot of like when Overwatch first came out, some of the first seasons that we started seeing some actual semblance of good gameplay. So no, I'm very excited to talk about these different variants.
Oh yeah. So let's get into a couple of things here. The control games have a larger map pool. Interesting, very interesting about this strategy is that Ilios, Busan, or Busan, I think it's like a BP combined for pronunciation. Lijiang, Tower, Oasis, and Nepal as your control maps.
I think
for assault, you've got.
Sorry, I was gonna say I think the idea of having more of these is because it's the first map that they play and also the tiebreaker, right? This is the fifth map.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gives them more flexibility having more.
Right. It's like the one cool thing about running this type of map first is you get like essentially one of the harder earned maps and one of the faster kind of totality of completion speed maps done first. And then you can kind of power through. If you're going to win a landslide victory of like 3-1 or 3-0, it happens way faster because you get those kind of moral victories early on. You can kind of push through them if you're kind of a good hype team, or if you're trying to punch back, you can kind of get the hard one out of the way first, essentially. And the next one is Assault. You've got Horizon, Lunar Colony, Hanamura, and Anubis. Hybrid has Blizzard World, Eichenwald, King's Row, which, you want to run your first season or your next season, first new stuff, first time. You pretty much just got to include King's Row every time because that's what everyone wants to watch. Then you got Escort, you got Junkertown, Havana, and Dorato, which is also a pretty big staple map. It's kind of like one of the second favorite maps of most folks out there. There we go.
I do like very much that they are keeping in line with the map pool that is currently in the season. All the maps that are currently in the competitive live season are in the map pool, plus a few others to they it's too limited for all these games and all these teams to just have those. So we have a few more maps, but at least we're covering all the ones in the live season, which I think is very important because a lot of people do turn to the Overwatch League to sort of like inform themselves, hey, what's really good in this map and how are they playing it? How are they abusing this type of composition in that map? And you can take that to your games, which I personally find some of the most fun of watching Overwatch League, right? What can I apply directly to my games?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when the map pool and the pool of maps that you get to play in comp are relatively the same, or
Hmm.
most of them are kind of overlapping. Because then you're like, oh, I can just jump into comp. I've got the smaller map pool I don't have to worry about. I can just jump into the games that are most natural and the highest competitive nature, and then I can practice and I can get
Hmm.
better. So, what are the things that we're seeing, Andres? Like, opening week, we've got a lot of good teams. We got a couple kind of snags in the scheduling for weekend 2, but eventually it'll kind of iron out when like some of the not drama, what's it called? The coronavirus stuff kind of helps put more games back out in China. That's going to happen
Well,
soon-ish.
they have already rescheduled. They're doing it in Seoul. All the games that
Oh,
were
great.
supposed to be played in China are going to be rescheduled to a studio in Seoul. So I don't even know if they're gonna be able to do live matches. I don't know if they might have an audience, but it might be a limited audience. I don't
Mm.
know at this point. But I imagine it has to be a logistical nightmare right now for
Oh
Blizzard,
yeah.
having to reschedule the 3 homestands in China, having to deal with all the ticketing because they've been hyping this and they've been selling tickets over there for a while.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this coronavirus is definitely affecting the league big time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Further through a lot of what we're going to be seeing is we're going to kind of talk through a lot of the stuff in categories. So like tanks and DPS and supports. And we're also going to use um the main illustrating point, or we're going to use is some of the better teams and the teams that are kind of pioneering at the top level and winning. So that would be your LA Gladiators and the Vancouver from opening weekend, and San Francisco Shock and the Dallas Fuel game, to kind of illustrate how San Francisco is basically just able to do unbelievable things with kind of not necessarily things that you would even consider as meta, relatively speaking, or just kind of like a new way of doing certain
Well, I
things.
mean, they're setting the meta right now. I
Yeah, they could
believe.
they could be. We don't really know. This is kind of just what we see right now, because we don't know if this is them kind of flexing on Dallas or if this is like what their standard is going to be when they go to these maps. Sometimes
Yeah, fair
it's hard to
enough.
tell.
Um, let's talk a little bit about the changes, like you
Sure.
mentioned,
Yeah.
because I do believe that there's been a shift. For a while, we've been playing with double shield, and there's been a lot of patch changes, but a lot of the patch changes have come really recently to us to the point that um not as much exploration has happened. But there are clear signs right now that Reinhardt is coming back. And Diva is also a very clear contestant to being the off tank of choice. And honestly, it's an odd duo. We've never seen Ryan Diva sort of synergize very well together. Um, but at the moment, it's sort of like the tank duo that a lot of these top teams are going for. And we're starting to see this in the ladder as well. Ryan definitely is coming back and solidifying itself as the main tank of choice, which personally I'm all in for Reinhardt metas. I think that when the game revolves around Reinhardt being the main tank, it feels really well. It flows quite well. Both teams sort of need to engage each other. They need to collapse at one point, right? Because the Reinhardt has to face the other Reinhardt. Unlike with
Hmm.
Orisa metas or sometimes even Sigma metas, that is a little bit more standoffish, and you're trying to gain ground a little bit more slower, sort of poking at each other, and
Right.
it's more bunkery in that sense. So I don't know. To me, Ryan made us feel a little bit more dynamic, and I like the
Hmm.
flow of the engages. What do you think?
I kind of agree with you. Outside of like the obvious goat in the room, with running 3 tanks.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that's never gonna happen again. Blizzard
Yeah. Yeah.
guaranteed
Yeah.
that,
For
right?
sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah. The other thing that is interesting that is kind of on the flip side of I guess not necessarily negative, just kind of a byproduct, is anytime professionals play in a Reinhardt centric meta, you can you can go to the bank that if you look at the support meta at that time, Lucio's involved.
Oh yeah.
But the interesting thing is this is the first time where he's not 100% necessary. You're seeing blips on the radar where Brigitte is showing up. And also alongside of McCree or Tracers or Widowmakers, for example. And I was starting to pick up a little bit on this on the Kings Row game between Vancouver Titans and the LA Gladiators, because what they were doing is both teams were running it, and they're trading the mobility for durability of the armor, and they're basically like on cooldown. Anytime they're trying to contest with a McCree, they just throw it on the McCree and give him armor. Or anytime the Tracer wants to go in and poke, throw it on the Tracer. Because they're just getting healing, you're getting ult charge, you're getting closer to the rally for the whole team. And the Tracers just get durable and have the armor to kind of offset a lot of their one shot kill potentials and make them just durable for one or two more shots. And then in the worst case scenario, and you got downtime, you just recharge them and you don't burn them. And you throw one in your tank and you just get ult charge real easy because they're just taking so much chip damage. And then when the fight actually finally breaks out, you just follow Reinhardt and you kind of just double up the damage a little bit in the fray, and you're getting this big aura of healing to kind of help soften a lot of the area of effect blows that you're going to be taking, and helping your tank stay a bit more durable. And you're healing with that setup when you got an Ana alongside of you or a Baptiste is absolutely disgusting. Like how much healing you're actually able to output for your team. It's gross.
No, totally agreed. And I think that because the metas are revolving around Rein, there's like a lot of room to play around with things, right? Like you can face the Rein with another Rein, in which case, like you mentioned, Lucio is quite valuable, right? Like the Rein that has more speed sort of has the advantage for a big chunk of the time. You'll be able to close the gap faster. You'll be able to sort of like maybe catch the other Rein in a bad position a lot better. So Lucio becomes super valuable in that sense, but because D.Va is also a powerhouse right now, you're also seeing things like Dive starting to come back. And because Rein is sort of static, he can't shoot at range, then a lot of the Dive heroes can get away with a lot of things, right? You no longer have to like go dive a bunker with Genji or Tracer, which is sort of like suicide for those heroes. Now you can sort of just ignore the Rein and stay away from him and target the people in the back line, right? But because now Dive also becomes viable, then like you said, then the Lucio in that context is not like that interesting, right? Because who are you trying to close the gap on? If you close the gap on any of those heroes, they're just dash away, booster away, jump away, right? There's no way to close the gap on those. So at that point, you might go with somebody like Brigitte, which is like, okay, well, they're definitely gonna come to us. So how can we make ourselves more durable? For McCrees, for Tracers, for all these heroes, like actually Brigitte is quite good at healing them, and the extra armor provides a lot of value for these guys, right? Having 50 extra health as armor is, I think, huge.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, I didn't really think of Brigitte as more of the, how would you say, like almost like a chess piece style of play, where she kind of just throws this thing in there. And the other kind of thing that was real interesting was when the enemy team started shifting to dive, and let's say like you're a defending team, right? And the enemy team is off like pushing a payload with dive or playing assault, and they're kind of coming into your space that you're trying to defend. If your team on defense is trying to basically use all their ultimates, or they find themselves in a scenario where the support ults kind of just got burned, a lot of times I have seen them just shift into Brigitte mode, right? Because they're not losing up anything on the ult economy. They may be losing like 10, maybe 20% off of what they had on Lucio, but Lucio builds sound barrier so incredibly slow now that if you lose like 10%, you can get that in no time with Brigitte. And then not only are you sacrificing so little on that side, but in the defending space, if the enemy team is shifted towards a dive format, you're like making your team way better against that setup because you've got a stun tool in your back hand to help defend your Ana or help defend your Baptiste or keep your Reinhardt. You got the whip shot to split beat people back just like Lucio does. So essentially you're not really losing. You're losing kind of constant boops for like a little bit less frequent, but then you're also you're kind of trading up for healing and trading up for durability and trading down on mobility. So you do have the exchange there, but a lot of the times Brigitte ends up being more beneficial in that setup because you're using it as a counter pick and B for a specific purpose, right? So
No, absolutely. And we're getting a lot of dynamics with that right now. Just to kind of like summarize, D.Va and Ryan, pay attention to those. Definitely trendsetters right now, and a lot of the top teams have been adopting those. One of the biggest signs that Orisa and Sigma are actually on the way down a little bit in terms of meta picks is the San Francisco Shock versus Dallas Fuel match. Dallas Fuel was really sticking to their guns. I think that for whatever the reason it might have been, I've heard rumors that they didn't have the right players. Some of them had maybe like visa issues, or I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on, but they were playing the Rhino Orisa for the most part, and you could tell they were pretty practiced in it. They were good. But San Francisco had evolved already. They were like embracing the D.Va, the Rhine, some of the like those dive mechanics that it enables them. And even though Dallas Fuel was pretty practiced, San Francisco still took him over. And granted, San Francisco is a great team. They were the champions for last season, so
right,
you could say there's a difference in power level there. But with less practice, San Francisco was able to overtake him with this kind of like new meta. And right now, Sigma does seem like he's struggling a little bit. His kit is not keeping up with the new changes. And Orisa as well. There is really a lot of room with the new D.Va to do a lot of plays. And with the Rhine, with his fortitude now, not being able to get knocked back as much. I think that we're seeing a big meta shift right here.
Oh, absolutely. I also like to point out that like when you're running D.Va, Ryan alongside each other, you have a lot of DPS options in your toolbox that you can choose from. Because you can basically pair up with your D.Va and run at them. And Reinhardt, as long as he's got a Lucio, can kind of move a bit quicker and kind of gap close a little bit if you've got your speed boost. But on the other side, if you want to play that kind of slow and paced brawly setup, you can still do that because D.Va's an excellent bruiser. She's also got the high mobility to get in and out as needed.
Ooh, sorry. my audio equipment did like some weird noise right there.
Andres' audio equipment does not want us to go today. It's just stop. Panic.
It really did panic.
Oh man, but yeah, like we were talking about, because when you got the D.Va there, D.Va can basically do whatever your team wants to do, and then Reinhardt can kind of just help fill in extra gaps when you want to stick around and brawl. If you want to finish them and go in, if you want to kind of play a little bit more pace in the back, you can do those. And he has got the largest barrier in the game now. And now that Sigma's got dropped significantly down, and his got dropped down a little bit, but like DPS, you're seeing Genjis, you're seeing Tracers alongside of each other sometimes. You got Reapers and Maze, Widowmakers and Krees. You've got, what was the other one that was really weird? Sombra even showed up with the setup. It was odd. And then you can even run Fair Mercy too.
Yeah, right now there's a lot of DPS that you can run. Like Dive is definitely back in fashion. Mei is still, or was still, the top pick last week. And I think we're going to see a lot of her this week as well. And moving on forward. Because of all the shield nerfs, I think that her wall is still fantastically good. Because Ryan is in fashion, she's still good against Ryan. But here's the thing. Her freeze is not as effective anymore. So all these dive heroes, like D.Va, for example, which before was like, can't do anything against this Mei, now actually it's quite good against her because it's really easy to just fly away from Mei at all times. You have your boosters every 3 seconds, so you have a ton of mobility. And it's really hard to freeze a Genji or a Tracer with that reduction in speed reduction from your freeze. So
Yeah.
it's enabling a lot of heroes to be played around her. Heroes that can take a little bit more of a I'm not gonna be around you approach and just sort of like dive in, dive out. But that being said, she's still so good for contesting, and her wall is still so useful for kind of like blocking damage and setting up traps and setting up your team to get kills. And she's still
Yeah.
not a diveable hero, right? Like you still don't want to dive in Mei as any of these. You kind of want to stay away from her and sort of like deal with her last. But because she has so much contesting power, then she still earns her spot in a lot of these compositions. So we've seen a lot of like Rhine Diva with a Mei and a Reaper that makes these very brawly, sort of like fast compositions. And even against Dive, they're almost like come at me, and you're playing heroes like Reaper and Lucio, or sometimes you can even swap it for a Brig, like you said, or a Moira instead of your Ana, which again makes it really unappealing to Dive. Like any of those heroes that you Dive sort of have a get away cooldown, whether it be Fade or Ice Block or Reaper in his what do you
Shadow
call it?
Step.
Yeah, Shadow Step or
Wraith
Wraith
Walk.
Form. Yeah, it has like all of them have escapes, so it's really hard to kill heroes by dive like that. So I think that from my standpoint, that is going to be the go-to compositions for now. Except when your team is just incredibly amazing at dive, like Vancouver Titans, and you just have an out-of-this-world Genji that can just get in there and get just insane kills. Then maybe you can get away with dive.
Yeah, when you get Hacksaw on your team, you can just do whatever you want.
But last
Essentially.
year you couldn't. He was in the team last year, and like he did bring
Yeah.
out his Genji every once in a while. But honestly, he couldn't unleash his power. But now he can. So it is at a
Now he
point where
can.
like it might be based on power level. Like, can you play a Genji at that level? If you can, welcome to the meta. If you can't,
Yeah.
you might want to, like keep to like Reaper and Mei and like the heroes that are a little bit more durable. So we'll see. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm curious how some of the teams are going to take it.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of really good points with May, but I kind of want to emphasize that May is not just good because she's got individual abilities that really make her powerful, like a lot of things that happen with Overwatch. But I think she's falling in the category where she's basically a Swiss Army knife, and she's also good at every single piece that she can do. It's not like you have a Swiss Army knife where you're a little bit pretty good at some stuff. She's like really good at everything. She's got no damage fall off. She can do a lot of pressure with her icicles. If you get in close, she's going to freeze you as a group. If you get pressured, you just freeze, and you can also heal. You can also use that as kind of a line of sight tool for your team to kind of huddle behind. If there's a diva bomb, just stand in front of the diva bomb and ice block. If you don't have your ice block, you get your wall. You can use it offensively. You can use it defensively. You can use it for mobility. You can use it for high ground. You can use it to help you get your ultimate. And your Blizzard is a funnel offensive defensive tool. Like, the thing is insane. Like, May basically can do whatever your team needs whenever your team needs to do it. And cooldowns are short enough, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. She's very versatile, and more than being versatile is her ability to just be able to contest. Like, I don't think there's a lot of other DPS that can do that. I think that's why
And her health
Brig,
pool is insane with a
yeah,
250.
that's why the old Brig was so powerful, right? You had like this support that could just stand almost indefinitely on the point. If you were like really good at Brig, you were almost unkillable in a lot of situations. So May sort of is I don't think it's as powerful as the old Brig, but it sort of has that same mechanics where it's like you're a DPS that can also act as a tank a lot of the times, and your own healer, right? You can heal yourself for a lot of the parts. So she's very independent, and she brings so much use to her team. She's very usable in like a lot of context, not just for getting kills, but for playing for the objective, which at the end of the day is the most important thing in Overwatch.
Yeah. Now, before we go in and talk a bit more about the supports, I want to just touch on the Symmetra stuff that's going on, because we got a patch recently that hit live where she got a bonus, and we also got some messages where she didn't have one-shot potential based off of what we were talking about last week. because she essentially can cap out her damage at 183, not at 200 like we had originally had thought, with her buff. And while I understand this is accurate, I want to address this just real quick because like she got a damage buff and typically can do a lot of the one-shot stuff. But when you put somebody in the threshold of being able to die to a melee that's not damage boosted really easily like that, that's basically what we're talking about. It's really easy to cough up anywhere south of 20 points of damage. So if you can maybe not one-shot them, I think that was kind of the idea that we were trying to go for, is that you're putting them in that threshold of anything, you breathe on them and they die type of a situation. Whereas before, if you hit somebody the melee and a damage boosted orb, you had a little bit of wiggle room that you could kind of survive a bit more. But now that gap is real tight. You can die real easy. So it probably wasn't accurate on Andres and I to literally tell you that it's a one shot, you know. But
to be honest, I thought it was a one shot. But yeah. Correcting ourselves.
But let's also talk about why she's being included now, despite that change not being an Overwatch League. That's one of the few changes that they're not playing on this patch. She doesn't have that big damage boost right now, but you're still not really seeing her outside of like the beginning of every match. The teams are choosing her every time, and why? Andres, you want to break that down real quick?
Yeah.
Why we're seeing Symmetra at the beginning of games?
Well, I think she's a good hero to start with. I'm curious to hear your opinion on it.
I mean, they basically are essentially using the teleporter to get teams out of the gate real quick. So everyone gets a speed boost into a teleporter and they can get to the point almost immediately because you got this instant transmission, to use Dragon Ball Z terms. And then when you teleport them, once they're in, you can just quickly hot swap and wait in your menu for selecting Reaper and then Wraith Walk immediately and catch up to them. So the Lucio is getting them the speed boost, and by the time your team runs out of the speed boost range, the Reaper has landed in the end of it with the Wraith Walk, and then your whole team is all together. And you got all 6 people in this clump just moving instantaneously, very quickly. And it's not an uncommon thing. This is literally every single team, no matter the composition or the setup, they have one of their DPS is always choosing Symmetra and always teleporting them and saving time at the beginning of the game.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, by playing these brawly comps, it's very important that you're able to sort of gain ground fast, right? And time is money in Overwatch. Every second counts. And these teams at that level are really trying to squeeze out every second that they can out of those games. Yeah. And I think it's one of the main things that you start noticing as you improve yourself in Overwatch. If you're playing from the bottom, right? If you're playing from bronze and you start climbing, that's the main noticeable thing. The pace of the game starts increasing, right? Everyone's using their time a lot more efficiently. There's less standing around and less not shooting, and everyone starts kind of like picking the pace up. They're shooting, and once you get to that level, it's like they're nonstop shooting at each other at every second. They're trying to use their abilities as often as possible. They're trying to squeeze in as many team fights and as many ultimates as they possibly can into every match. So I'm not surprised that they're using Symmetra as an accelerator and then swapping off, especially because if they can prove to themselves that, yeah, this is buying us time, you can guarantee they're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like you see a lot of this tightening up in any rank queue as well. People are using speed boost to get out of spawn and then swapping off of Lucio if they're not going to play it. You know, that was a thing for a long time when Lucio's speed boost range was insane. They would just use it if they were going to run it. You also had like all kinds of other things where people would just be like, hey, let's just do this. Or let's do the teleporter and we'll play Symmetra for a fight. And after that, then you know, nix the teleporter and change heroes. But now we're just like, oh, well, we can just drop it and then switch heroes. They got a good way. It's less about the fact that Symmetra is able to do this and more about that there's 2 heroes that help them do this, right? You got the Symmetra that shoots them out there. And then you can instantly travel that distance in a second with Widowmaker or Reaper. Because both of them have this essentially this instant transport movement type thing that they don't need anyone else for.
Another DPS that I'm really glad is sort of coming back is my boy McCree. I am so happy that McCree is back in fashion. He, I would say, is one of the other most played DPS. May is definitely the most played, and then after that, it kind of falls down drastically. But I would say McCree had a day in the spotlight for sure last week, and I expect him to also see a lot of him this week and the next. He actually has things to shoot at. A lot of players are playing things that McCree is good against, and if you're playing all these brawling compositions, especially with Diva, that can actually keep McCree fairly safe. If McCree's getting
Mm-hmm.
focused, you just sort of like aim your matrix at him, and it's like this warm blanket that McCree is so happy to get. Just like, oh, no damage can cross to me at this time. This is great. He's very effective against characters like May. As May, you want to get close to a lot of characters, but not McCree with a flashbang. That is a death sentence for you right there. Um, you can sometimes play it with the ice block, but right there, that's more of a tossing the dice, right? Can you
Mm-hmm.
predict that flashbang and outplay it? But at that level, sometimes you don't want to take those risks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's earning his spot in the meta. Farah Mercy are still a thing, so he's decent against those. And then I think that I don't know. I'm just happy that McCree's back, especially seeing some of these McCree plays that we've seen in the league today. It's just
Just go watch
man, I'm
Decay.
excited.
Decay is like he didn't even like win the series per se. You know what I mean? But he won a couple games. But Decay absolutely popped off. He was just dumped, had some crazy just dumpstering
He
entire
did.
enemy teams by himself. Sometimes with people. And I'm so excited to see him because like anytime you see McCree and Reinhardt, right? Like those two players are like kind of like they work really, really well together and making plays. And they kind of they're kind of like these highlights of the team where if you are really, really good at team play, you can basically set those two roles of Reinhardt and McCree to just look like absolute gods. Because like
Hmm.
they just can do whatever they want if your team's supporting them properly. It's
The
really, really cool to
Yeah,
watch.
the thing about McCree, sorry, the thing about McCree is that you can actually hard carry with him in certain team fights. Like your McCree
Yeah,
can pop off and literally kill 5 people or sometimes 6 people. We
right.
saw a couple of 6Ks by McCree's in the league already, so it's not
Yeah.
like an uncommon thing, right? Like you get those like 5, 6 headshots in a row, and suddenly the whole other team is decimated. You can bring down a tank really, really fast. And now that the shields are kind of breaking a lot faster, you do get a lot of windows of opportunities. We even saw McCree just popping off against Orissas and Sigmas, which didn't
Mm-hmm.
used to be a thing. You never have the space to actually get that much damage into them. So I'm really, really happy that there's an opportunity for those McCrees out there. Definitely play him because he is back in fashion.
All right, let's jump into the supports really quick here. So we did talk a lot at nauseum about the differences between Lucio and Brigitte, but I just wanted to make sure that just so you guys know, if Lucio and Brigitte are kind of picks that you're considering in playing games, you want to try to emulate these strategies, they're not together. It's one or the other, and then your other support is a main support in most senses.
Although that being said, there are fringe compositions that do
Correct.
use the Lucio and the Brig. It's very low healing. I do not
It's very
recommend to
rare.
try this at home unless you're playing with a coordinated team and you're all on the same
Hmm.
page, because it really takes a lot of discipline for everyone in your team to not be taking damage, to be able to take
Hmm.
away or get away with that kind of low healing composition. That being said,
Yeah.
it does open up the possibility for a lot of really clutch plays, and especially if you're playing very divey. Even though Brigitte doesn't sound like a dive hero, she's great at healing dive characters. So there's fringe
Yeah.
compositions, very creative. Sometimes you see it at like masters or like grandmaster ranks. Um, but yeah, definitely beware.
Right. Yeah, you got to be very disciplined with that style of play. The other thing that we'll highlight is kind of the people that aren't really getting included a whole bunch, which Zen tends to be the one that got nerfed to the ground quite a bit of few times now. And that's why you're not really seeing him a whole bunch. I can actually still see him as being a very relevant source of damage if it wasn't so easily to like for an entire team to just get on him so quickly. and provide that sort of thing. So you're seeing him here and there, but it's very low compared to the rest of the inclusions. And the other one is Mercy, because the only time you see Mercy is when the team is running a Pharah, a Widowmaker, or both. Most of the time, you're not seeing her like at all, unless Pharah is in the game. Pharah doesn't exist in Overwatch League unless a Mercy's in the game, because it's just if they're not together, they're not doing enough by themselves. And the Widowmaker is kind of in the same case, but Widowmaker is on the outside of that, where if your McCree is kind of getting jumped and killed very easily, and the sight lines in that map are longer, you're typically seeing the McCree swap to Widowmaker or pick Widowmaker first and see if that gets better. Or switching on certain points that are more beneficial to Widowmaker's sight lines than McCree's.
Definitely.
Like Blizzard World, for example.
Yeah, Widow's still definitely in the game with maps that, like you said, big sight lines or the enemies may be playing a pharmacy. Widow's still the number one hero to get rid of pharmacy, right? If you can get those headshots, it's just there's nothing that Mercy can do, right?
Yeah. So the other supports that we're going to really highlight here are twofold, which is Ana and Moira are typically the two that we're seeing, and then Baptiste is the other one that's kind of gotten dropped down. The interesting factor in these three healers is that Ana has basically gone unchanged coming through this meta's doorstep. And then Baptiste has gotten dropped on his damage quite a bit, and his healing numbers a little bit have been adjusted. And Moira's gotten a couple nerfs here and there throughout her totality of her healing over time, her damage, and her drain self-heal from her right-click ability. And I think that Moira is very interesting to me because the only time I found Moira's showed up as being valuable was when both teams were running it. And then typically, at least in the few edge cases that I was watching, the team that had the Moira just seemed to lose more than the team with the Ana. When one team was playing Ana and the other was playing Moira, the team with Moira just didn't really have the same output. Or they had the same output and Ana denying the healing was more valuable. So if you got the opportunity to have more offensive grenades and also landing a sleep dart, then that fight was over.
Yeah, so I think Moira can be a clutch switch. I think that Moira is definitely viable, especially because you're playing with brawly compositions, right? You're still trying to run up to the hero, be mobile, sort of be in their face. So Moira still fits into that playstyle. But right now, Moira has a huge weakness, and it's that D.Va is getting played. And Moira's burst healing comes from basically a projectile that D.Va can easily eat almost every time. And if D.Va is on top of it, man, you're in trouble. And you could say, you could say the same thing about Ana, right? Like her sleep darts and her nades are eatable as well, but I think they're a little bit harder to catch. I mean, a good D.Va is still gonna catch a few of them, but for the most part, I think the Ana can play around the matrix, right? As soon as the Ana see the matrix goes down, she does have enough time to sort of like throw the nade in there and get it in.
And they're fast enough to get past it.
Exactly, but the Moira orb is so slow that still not. You can still catch it with D.Va for most of the part, or before it gets full healing out there. That being said, Moira does have the ability to fade, and that's something that Ana doesn't. That for some teams, right? If you're struggling to keep your Ana alive, you might be better off just going Moira and preserving your life at that point. That being said, if your Ana is fantastic, like a lot of these teams are, like freaking Jonak or you have so many fantastic Anas in the league, or Violet. Yeah, exactly. She pairs so well with a lot of the heroes right now. You can nano boost your Reinhardt, you can nano boost McCree, Genji, you can nano boost even your D.Va. There's just so many targets that are good to boost right now, and your kid plays so well with a lot of the heroes that are being played. So if you have that fantastic Ana, I think that it definitely gives you the edge, especially if your other support can kind of like keep up with you and keep you alive, and not just your support, but your team in general.
Yeah, I also couldn't remember where I heard this from, but it's probably some other podcast or in the Overwatch space, or it was kind of the commentators were talking about this. Was just like Anna's ultimate has kind of shifted now into becoming this real big Swiss Army knife of ultimates that kind of can spin on a dime and as far as usability for support ults. It can basically make somebody more durable and increase the likelihood that you can be more offensive as Ana. Like you can basically drop that and onto a target to save them as a reaction kind of the thing, and kind of just pump that into them and shoot them once for a heal, and then you can go full aggro with your sleep dart and your grenade, and kind of bide your time and let your tank take a bit more chip damage because they're taking reduced damage and they just got a bunch of heal. The enemy team's going to be a lot less likely to do anything besides CC them because they're taking so little damage. And on the other side of it is you can do it to enable your team to just go in and just wreck everything, right? Making your McCree's regular standard fires really, really strong and fast. You can also just give to your Reinhardt after a shatter and just blow everything up. It's again, it's falling into the same category you're talking about. May it's a Swiss Army. It's a Swiss Army knife. It's really good.
It's good in defense. It's good in offense. On defense, it's a switch flipper, right? Like in a situation where your teammate's about to die and you're about to lose the fight, you immediately flip it into a situation where your teammate is now on the offense, right? It could be he could be close to dying, and then with just like the click of a button, like now you're fully healed, you take less damage, and you hit super super hard. And at that point, like you said, if the Ana lands an 8 in there, that it could have turned from like something that you're about to lose to we're winning this engagement right here, which is incredibly powerful at all levels of play. And then, like you said, you don't even have to use it to save somebody. If you know you're going in the aggressive and you have a plan, you know who's about to make a play, you can just boost them and increase the efficiency of that play, right? Whether it be boosting an ultimate like a McCree or a soldier or a Genji blade, or you're boosting your Winston sort of engaging, or your hamster engaging, right? Like I love boosting hamsters right as they pile drive on a squishy because it usually gives them like enough power to just like one shot him right there, and like most people are not expecting it, right? So I don't know. There's so many uses for her ultimate that if you have a good Ana on your team right now, she's looking good.
I gotta say, anytime Ana is in the meta, I'm just a happy camper. Not just because I like playing Ana, but just because watching pros play Ana is just beautiful games. Like absolutely amazing to watch professional Overwatch like support play with Ana. They are the most incredible playmakers of any setup. Like there was a clip in the top 5 from last weekend where Jonak is 1v1ing a Reaper, and the Reaper predicted the sleep dart and dodged it, and it still lost because Jonak is just that insane.
Yeah, going up against a good Ana, oh man, it's hard.
Yeah, and there was Violet sleep darts from clear across the map, just setting up entire team fights, just wiping them out because basically he hits a sleep dart, the enemy team engages or his team engages, and it's a 5v6. It's 5 of them are only able to function for the next couple seconds. And or they're able to like sleep dart and then blow them up with some huge ultimate. And Andres was talking about one of the clips that was not necessarily around Ana, but more around tank play. And it was just really interesting because like if you watch the play, you're like, oh my word, he killed 6 people. That's insane. And then you like, if you watch it at slower speeds, you're seeing all of these little mini kind of steps and team play decisions and definitely communications that are going on the back end that aren't verbalized that you can hear, that you know are going on if you know the game behind the scenes that set up moments like that. Like it's not just the diva just throws a bomb in and blows everyone up. Like, you know what I mean? Like
right. Everyone in the team put in their little part to make sure that when that diva bomb went off, everyone in the other team died. Yeah, for sure. And we're talking about the game between LA Gladiators. No, sorry, LA Valiant and Dallas Fuel.
Dallas.
It was like the play of the week or something like that, like the number 1.
Yeah.
Go check it out because it's actually pretty cool to dissect it. But yeah, I'm just really glad the meta might still be changing and these heroes might not be set, but for now we're getting a lot of heroes that are just incredibly fun to watch. Some of the pro players play these guys. Like I love watching them play McCree, play Genji, Actually, watching a really good Reinhardt is also really entertaining. Like watching Super just go to town on some of these people and Rein, it looks fun, and it is fun for the Reinhardt too. Like there's nothing cooler than like going straight into the enemy team, getting nano boosted, and just like slamming their heads. That is actually fun to do.
Yeah.
um,
I'm
Widowmaker
just glad
again.
that like we're seeing not just a meta that's enjoyable to watch, but that we're seeing counterpicking as being way more of a main element to these series. And also, we're also seeing a lot of inventing and kind of tightening on of the notches and moving of the tweaks of like making a team composition look a little bit different based off of situations or scenarios or team countering or map countering, that sort of decision making. We see that a lot more than we have in the past, where it's just like, oh, this is the best thing on every single map, running it all the time.
Yeah, and we're seeing some different styles of defense too. Like watching a dive defense is one of the coolest things ever because you really have to have a lot of discipline. Like the instinct normally, especially if you go into ranked, is oh, they're moving the payload, we have to go engage them, right? We have to like meet their front line and stuff. But when you watch the pros play dive, it's such a patient game where they will let the enemy team take space. They will let them gain the point or move the payload until they know they can engage, right? It's not like, oh, let's just let them push, but it's like a very calculated engage. And you have to have a lot of communication to know, like, we can't engage right here, and we engage, we're gonna die. So we're gonna concede maybe a part of the point, or we're letting kind of cap a little bit, and then we're gonna dive last minute when we're better positioned and better arranged, and then we're gonna take care of everyone and not let them move the payload. So I don't know. It's such a beautiful style to see, especially because you can see them starting to surround the attacking team, and it's almost like even though they're on defense, they're almost like on the attack, right? And they're trying to meet the team in places where they're on the offense before the attacking team even gets a chance to like get to the payload, right? But if the
Mm-hmm.
attacking team does well enough and they do get to the payload, that's when all this like kind of like tug of war goes on, and I don't know, it's really fun to watch, and we haven't had that in a while. I think since like goats basically became a thing, we've had a very
Yeah.
static sort of like defense style where the defending team sets up and almost like waits for the attacking team, right? And like the point is very centered, but yeah, dive is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been loving looking at those styles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. I think this scenario plus the hero balancing aggression that's going to happen in like a week or two, where they're going to start banning heroes like once a week, is going to make this even more dynamic, even more interesting for the pros to really try to problem solve. Like, imagine based off of just week one, if you roll into week two, knowing that you can't play May, you can't play Reinhardt, and Anna's unavailable, or Lucio probably is more practically speaking the one that's going to get not picked, because I think Lucio had a higher pick rate than Anna did. But
Mm-hmm.
um, those three heroes gone. What are you going to play? Are you just going to play Winston and Diva? And then you're just going to run like Moira and Anna? Or you're going to play Anna and Brig and dive heroes? Like, what are we going to do?
I mean, yeah, that's part of the fun, right? Discovering like
It's going to be
what becomes
exciting.
good.
That coaching staff probably loves that, man.
I was gonna say there was one hero that we haven't mentioned, and somebody here in chat is bringing her up, and that is Zarya. Zarya, it's still quite relevant, and I think that because you're running Rhine, there is room to run Zarya, especially on maps like King's Row, for example, where she's always gonna be super effective. This is thin corridors. Your grab usually has a lot of effectiveness, and you can get charged up really quick, and sort of nobody can be too far away from you because it's so thin, right? Like the map itself,
Right.
it's not very open. So for those maps, I think Zarya still works out really well. She can get Rhine out of a blizzard or out of a freeze, or she can cancel nade that landed on your front line for her and the Rhine or somebody else. So there's still a plays in the meta for her, and I think that she will be coming in and out depending on the map and the style of the
Saw her a
team.
little bit on Blizzard World Attack as well, because they're trying to
Yeah.
grab that point and then hold the cart. Um, which is interesting because like the same map on which it was played, that team made a like it was Dallas was also like running some weird decisions because they're like, oh, we're gonna put this player in and run double barrier, and they're not gonna play the hero like Diva that they would have normally played, but they really wanted to play, Zarya. It was just like some weird decision making stuff going by some of the teams. So don't take everything that you see in like 100% pick rates or what certain teams are doing or like while they're just doing something different. Some teams and some coaching structures are going to be doing what we talked at the top of the show, where they're just like, well, we think the double barrier is still good enough, or
Right.
it is still the best. And so even if like because you have these scenarios where if you are on paper or even in practical terms, your team is just not as good as another team, you have all this huge swath of reasonings why you might be worse than that other team. It might be players, it might be practice, it might be meta, right? It also might just be that you're picking the wrong heroes to play against them. But it's kind of hard to discern if like the Vancouver Titans are really that good, or if they're just kind of ahead on choosing what the best stuff is to play and also playing it really well. Because
I
you got
know.
those two things of
I do
execution,
think
right?
Haxel is that good.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, there's some certain objective points to be said, of course, but sometimes at the end of the day, when the wire kind of gets thinner between the skill gaps of players, there's way more variables kind of start popping up
yeah,
as
for sure.
reasonings behind how
And
things are there. That's just
with
beyond execution alone.
yeah, with what you're saying, I think is the same. For example, like Ryan or sorry, Zarya and Diva right now. There's an argument to be made for both. And if you think about it, Zarya is decent against Diva, but a Diva that knows what she's doing is also decent against Zarya because you can eat her grabs, you can stay away from her
Yep.
range. And I think that for the first time ever, we're seeing Ryan's Diva being played together because Diva can actually bring that much to the table. The mobility boost that she gained is actually much more impressive than everyone thought it was going to be. It allows her to be everywhere. She becomes really hard to kill a lot of the time just based on mobility, even though her matrix is still untouched and has been nerfed several times because you can get to so many places so fast and your matrix can
Often.
eat so many things that are like valuable right now. You can eat grabs, you can eat May ults,
Blizzards.
nades, blizzards, Moria orbs. There's a lot of usability right now to Diva, and it brings that composition a whole nother layer. Historically, Ryan Zarya comp is really bad at contesting high ground, right? You almost have to play around high ground and not giving certain high ground sidelines so they don't decimate you. But with Diva, you don't have that problem, right? Ryan takes care of the terrestrial stuff. Diva can go deal with whoever's up there, right?
The other thing too, the Andres is like the kind of this running theme with a lot of these top tier heroes of Diva and May and Ana and essentially Lucio in a lot of ways. These heroes are just Swiss Army knives. Like they're kind of fitting that same mold. They can just do everything really well and not just average or pretty good. It's like really well. And this whole composition that's kind of come about is just kind of like you take the average of what heroes can do, and out of all the different things that they bring to the table, you just sort of like, well, we'll just take the highest average and slap a bunch of them together, and then we got a couple heroes that are just really strong at one thing that kind of fit within where all of them overlap, like McCree or Reinhardt. And to a certain extent, Brigitte, Lucio can kind of enable them to move a bit more and give them mobility to kind of fill in some gaps in the minor weaknesses that comp may have. You use those other heroes to kind of fill in those gaps. But essentially, you got three heroes, one in each category, that just do almost everything. And then you got a bunch of other heroes in the roster that fill more niche roles, especially in DPS, where the roles are a bit more kind of less generalized, I guess you could say, right? Like they're a little bit more poignant, like range or size, or like they solve specific problems, like Sombra and Bastion, for example, or Doomfist even. But yeah, I don't know, man. I also wonder now that we're doing this hero pick ban thing, our hero pools thing, where heroes are going to get removed for a week. This kind of Swiss Army style of meta development could be one of the ones where if this sticks for a long time and there's like no balance changes, I could see this meta evolving a lot, like week to week, like where teams are like, oh, this is the best thing. and then like 2 weeks later it's like, oh, that's trash. You know what I mean?
It's very likely, yeah, the way it's going. We're still a ways from that. So for now, I'm interested to see where it settles because I do think it's gonna settle
Yeah.
at one point, and we're gonna get like that top comp that a lot of teams are gonna be running. But I wonder what that's gonna look like, right? Because right now it does look like it's sort of like the Wild West. It's still out there. There's so many changes that happened that people are still trying to figure out. Okay, where do we fit in this meta, and how can we integrate? What do we need to practice? The first week happened, and I think we saw a lot of really cool stuff. And I'm sure a lot of teams are taking note right now and going
Mm.
back to the drawing board. So staying tuned for this weekend and the next because I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of very cool stuff. And then by the time this is over, we might get hero bans too. So
Yeah.
a lot of changes.
Yeah, and we can look forward to that if you are on the right side of the world where all of the games are happening right now until Seoul and China get their games, which I will be excited about because they're in my time zone and I can actually start watching things. Yeah. Live. I'm so hyped because I'm kind of sick of being on VOD Squad permanently. uh but let's kind of close out the show here. We've talked about so many different things, and let us know what you think. I have on the show notes kind of a quick breakdown of what happened in Nepal. If you're curious, kind of what each team ran, if they swapped anything throughout the game. I didn't include anything that swapped at the 99 to 99 percentile because of people just trying to get back quickly. Those things aren't really relevant. Um, Stuff that we didn't talk about today was a little bit more of what the dive side of things looks like. We kind of ran out of time there, but like if you're curious about more stuff like this and we see more dive developing, especially on these off weeks when the hero pools kind of do that in the Overwatch League, we might revisit this topic. This is really, really interesting. And if you also have some suggestions, please pop in our Discord, shoot us an email, tweet at us, let us know what you think and what topics would interest you that we can talk about on the show. Andres, would you like to thank the people that are on the diamond level of our Patreon?
Absolutely. As always, thank you to Cypher, Shazir, Shefford, and Krista Playa. All top supporters of the show. They've been for a while, and we really appreciate it. These guys are super, super awesome.
We also have new Patreon subscriber Kevin S. Thank you so much for signing up with the Patreon this month. We hope to see you soon. And I think this is also the person who I was talking to within the last 24 hours of scheduling coaching and potential scaling his pledge to get more coaching sessions. So we look forward to seeing you in our coaching sessions soon. Just as a reminder, that is that the platinum level and above, you can get access to that. And if you're above a certain threshold, then and you want more coaching sessions, we can offer. I think we're maxing it out at 2 per person at this point, but we're open to considerations. If you guys want to find us, Twitter, we're on Twitter, we're on Patreon. The show's on Spotify. If you want to share the show, you can find us there. If you want to find us on iTunes, we're there. And if you're having trouble finding us on any of your other podcasting platforms, please shoot us a message and let us know how we can try to fix that, remedy that sort of situation. I've also been kind of behind a little bit on YouTube. We're trying to get some of the stuff up on YouTube a little bit there. Some of those shows are a little lagging behind on pacing, but they will be there eventually. Kind of is the style we're going for. And don't forget to miss our game night on the 28th. And Andres, where can people find you?
If you want to find me, you can find me over on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find me on Twitch, streaming occasionally a little bit of Overwatch, or I've been playing Heroes of Runeterra lately. You can do that over on twitch.tv/iPlayGamesTV.
You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. And yeah, we'll probably see you guys next week, bright and early on Saturday. It's kind of the general trend right now. But if you guys want to find us, you can find me at NotRob on that tag. And if you want to talk anything else, let us know. We'll see you guys next week. Adios.
Alrighty.
I forgot to hit the button for you. I was not sure if you were going to hit it because you did the intro to this week. I was like, do I?
Oh,
do I hit
yeah.
It? Do I hit
We're still
How about
hurrying that up. Well, hit it. Go ahead and hit it. Let's close it up.
How about now? See you guys.
have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself.